happened, and a lot of people have been having a lot of good times, and everybody's, kind of laughing and whatnot like that. And I don't want to like kill the mood, but I kind of want to alter it, because right now a lot of what we're talking about is a lot of BBA. But to be honest, once we leave this room, we all have other lives outside of that as well. We all have different things that we aspire to do. We all have different things that we want to do. And we meet each other bypass, when we see each other once in a while, we're like, hey, what are you up to? I'm going to class, or hey, I just got done taking a midterm, so forth and things like that. So what I want to actually talk about are things that do apply to BBA, but not just that, but as well as for the rest of your life. Things that I have learned through BBA, and actually things that I've learned through like lifting, believe it or not. So it was actually funny because when I first started this speech, it was Brandon who asked me to do it, and I didn't know if there was a time limit or not, and I actually didn't know what I wanted to talk about, honestly. So it kind of hit me because I was in the shower and I was like, what am I going to talk about? Like everyone has like those moments where you're just kind of like in the shower, you're like, shit, what am I doing today? Like, what's going on tomorrow? Or, oh shit, I actually got a shit, like, whatever, So yeah, anyway, so I was in the shower and, I was just thinking like, oh man, like obviously you're wet when you're in the shower. So I actually thought of this story about these two frogs that I remembered. And it was actually a very motivational story that I heard. And basically what ended up happening is there's these two frogs that lived in the swamp. And then they're brothers. So one day they went away from the swamp and they went in this farmhouse. The two brother frogs ended up going into a house, and then in that house was a bucket with milk and half a cream. So both of the brothers went inside and they were all like, oh, this is really cool, like I've never done this before, let's go inside. And they both ended up in the bucket. Eventually what ended up happening though is after they ended up drinking and ended up having a good time, it was too slippery, so they couldn't get out of it anymore. So they tried and they tried and they tried and they tried and they couldn't get out of it whatsoever. Eventually the second frog brother, he's a bro frog. So anyway, the second frog brother, he told his first brother, he was like, hey man, I'm not gonna do this anymore. I can't do it, like miracles don't happen for frogs. We can't seek miracles, we're just frogs. And the first brother's like, no, I'm not gonna give up, I'm gonna keep going. He's like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to stop. So eventually he did, and then he drowned. So the second frog actually died. But the first frog kept going, and he kept going, and he kept going, and he kept going, and he kept turning his legs over and over and over again until eventually he couldn't go any further. And then when he was right about to stop and he couldn't turn one last time, there was a surprise thing that happened, that he ended up on a brick thing. He actually wasn't turning anymore. The milk and the cream ended up actually becoming butter, to the point that all his consistent work ended up becoming butter. And then from then on, he hopped and he became alive. He went back to the swamp without his brother. So the point of that story is that I want to tell everybody here right now is like, yes, we're having a good time, we're all having a bunch of laughs, but like I said, once you're out of this room, everything I say, everything we do is just going to be a memory. But what ends up happening is at the end of the day, it's not about what everybody else is doing, it's about what you're going to do and what you aspire to do. And things not just breaking. I mean, breaking is great and we all have like hobbies and things that we like to do, but other than that, what are you doing to expand yourself? I know everyone here has different kinds of goals. Like, we're not just b-boys, we're not just blockers, we're not just poppers, we're not just dancers. We're not just choreo heads, we are people. Those are like little labels that we have, but that's not who we are. Who we are is way more than that. So what I'm trying to get at is there's a lot of things that's in my head. The first being is, what is it that you aspire to do? What is it that you always wanted to do, but you never ended up doing it? Or what is it that you want to do now, but you don't know how to do it, or you don't know how to like pursue it quite frankly? And what is it that's stopping you? And I have like three ideas of what it is that stops people. One of which is fear. That's the main one that people run into the most. It's like fear of what? Fear of failure, fear that you don't have enough time, fear that people are going to judge you, fear that you're going to be criticized, things along those lines. So the idea is we're scared of failure, but the thing that I'm trying to tell you right now is actually I want you to seek failure. Because how many times of you, when you're here, every time you go to session, what ends up happening? Everybody here who does a freeze, what? Crashes. Everyone who does a locking position on their knee gets a bruise. Everyone who does any kind of hit, it hurts. Like Sean was talking about this shit right here, right? Like, that hurts, like I don't lock, but fuck, that hurts. So what I'm trying to get at is I want you to seek failure. You have to fail, because if you don't fail, then you're not going to grow. And if you don't grow, then there's no point. There's no point of you expanding your life whatsoever. So I want you to seek your failure. One of my favorite motivational speakers, his name is Eric Thomas, E.T. You know, a lot of you guys have probably heard his stuff, you know, success, you know, you gotta wanna have success as much as you wanna breathe. How many people have ever heard of that quote? Right? Okay, beautiful thing. One of my favorite quotes from here is also, pain is temporary. Pain is temporary. It may last a minute, it may last an hour, it may last a day, it may last a whole year. But eventually it will subside and something else will take its place. If I quit, however, it'll last forever. Okay? So I want you to think about that, like as you go on, as you're studying, as you're trying to write that resume, as you're trying to write that cover letter, as you're trying to fix your 6th step, as you're trying to learn that power move, as you're trying to get your hits better, whatever it is that you're aspiring to do, like it hurts now. It really does, you know, but that's the point. It's supposed to hurt now. Because if it doesn't hurt now, then it's gonna hurt a lot more along the lines when the time is eventually gonna pass. And then if you quit now, then that time would have passed where nothing would have been accomplished or productive or produced. Okay, so that's one of the things is fear. Okay, hold on. Got another thing. Okay, so failure, accept the fact. Okay, another thing is everyone here sucks. And the reason that I bring that up is because, you know, like a lot of us, like when we present ourselves to someone for the first time, a stranger or something along those lines, it's like, who are you? What do you do? Why should I recognize you? Why should I respect you? Those are the kind of subconscious things that we end up having in the back of our minds when we first meet somebody, right? Let's be honest. Okay, what's your major? Oh, I'm, you know, this. And it's like, oh, it's easy. Right, what's your major? Oh, it's this. Oh, this smart. Yeah, that's I ain't gonna fuck with that, right? Like, so you end up having those kinds of things, you know. But in not just your majors, but in any other aspect that I'm telling you guys about is, in order to be good at something, you have to start, right? Everyone expects to be great already, but there's one of my favorite quotes also. It says, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And the idea is that when you're first learning something, especially like the first years here or the younger years or something along those lines, I can't wait for what you guys have to, like, in 4 years from now, you guys are gonna be fucking amazing. You know, doing all kind of like one finger halos or some shit, I don't know. It's gonna be crazy, right? But the idea is that you have to accept that you suck. You know, swallow your pride, because if you don't do that, then you're just constantly gonna be lying to everyone else around you, and you're gonna be lying to yourself, thinking that, oh man, you know, like, I'm good, I have to present myself in a strong manner, otherwise people won't want me, people won't respect me, or anything along those lines. So it's okay to say, hey man, you're good at this, I wanna be like that, I wanna aspire to be like that, be my mentor, be my coach, tell me what to do. That's why we have workshops. That's why we have classes, because people like that need help, but they're too scared to ask. They're afraid of being ridiculed, judged, or criticized. So that's why I want you guys to think about, like, the things that scared you. Accept that shit. Accept the fact that you have to fail. Accept the fact that you suck, and swallow your pride. Okay? So that's one thing. Okay, so another thing is time. I want to talk about time, because we just basically talked about that. You know, when you first see somebody, if I tell you that, oh, there's a CEO, and then you're all like, oh wow, he's a CEO, man, I wonder how he got there, right? And it's like, oh, there's this person here, he's like, you know, freaking good at something about jobs too. It's like, oh man, I wonder how he got there. And the idea is like, there's no really big secret of easy, like, how. It's like, oh man, like, I don't know what it is, like, how do they do it? Honestly, what it is when somebody gets an A in the class, or when somebody ends up having a good job or something along those lines, it's because they did things every single day that eventually led up to that point. Being successful basically means requiring you to be consistent in what you do. So whatever it is that you're seeking to be successful at, whether it be dancing, whether it is to try to find a job, whether it is to try to be a boss, whether it is to start your own organization, your company, or whatever it is that you're looking for, be consistent in that manner. And it's actually those days that you don't feel like going, those are the most important days. Because the lack of action that you have within that moment is going to be produced later on as well. Now, I'm not saying that rest is not valuable, because you need rest. Like, God took a rest on the 7th day too. You know what I mean? So you need to rest, and you need to celebrate the time that you've been able to do those things, and you've been able to work hard. But make sure that every single time you try to do something, even if it is small, even if it's really, really small. There's a magical number that I read in the book. The number is 0.003. I see like a bunch of confused faces right now. 0.003 is like, if you can, whatever it is that you want, okay, whatever it is, imagine being twice as good at whatever it is that you're seeking right now. Imagine having twice the amount of money, twice the amount of skills, dance skills, twice the amount of clothes or anything along those lines in a year from now. Wouldn't that be amazing? And the number that I'm trying to give you is the 0.003, because what that is I want you to take something that you do on a daily basis, studying, dancing, thinking about things, or something along those lines. Okay, if you add 0.003 more effort into that on a daily basis, if you multiply that by 365 days, it's going to be 1.095, which is a 100% increase in what it is that you've done. Which means by the end of that year, you have been twice as good than where you first started that 0.003. But the funny thing is, within that as well, there's 0.095. So there's room for mistake, even above that 100% increase. But the idea is that you want to keep consistent, and you want to keep going, and you want to do as much as you can. Okay? So whatever it is, even if it's a small thing, even if it's a small incremental thing that you do, like if you write down on a piece of paper your first letters of your name or something like that, at least you have that down. Next, write down the next sentence. Next, write down the next sentence. Next, write, and then eventually you have an essay. Right? So that's the idea. So small incremental changes will lead to invisible results. And invisible results are actually quite a funny thing, because you're not going to see your efforts. You're not going to see how good you are within the end of that day. Within the end of those 24 hours, you're not going to see what that 0.003 has accumulated to. It sucks, but you're not. But at the end of that year, everyone else around you is going to see that. Everyone else around you is going to see how hard you've worked and how high you've gotten. You know? So, okay. And this is the thing. When you become successful at anything it is that you do, there are 3 levels of truths. First, people will ridicule you. They'll be like, oh, no, he can't do that. There's no way he can do that. That shit's hard. Why would he ever try that? It's pointless. Okay? But then you keep doing what it is that you do regardless of what it is, because it's in here. Because you have a passion for it. Because you're like intrinsically motivated. Because you want it so bad. That you have like this competitive spirit that, you know, like, fuck this guy, whatever he's doing. Fuck that guy, whatever he's doing. I'm going to just do whatever it is that I'm going to do. Okay? So that's it. One is they're going to ridicule you. But then let's say afterwards that you start becoming a little bit successful. All of a sudden, instead of not being able to make prelims, you make prelims. Right? Or now all of a sudden, now you stop being top 8. And now all of a sudden you stop being top 4. Now you start becoming in the finals, semifinals, or something along those lines. Those little small things, people start seeing you now. Now what are people going to do? The funny thing is, people are going to make excuses for you. They're going to be like, oh man, the reason he did that is because he was with this person and that person carried him. Or the reason he does that is because he's good at this and he's done that. Or the reason why Prodigy is good is because he was taught by Casper. Right? Something along those lines. People are always going to make excuses for you once you become good at something. Eventually, though, the beautiful thing is once you finally start winning, and once you start being successful at what it is that you're striving for, instead of people ridiculing you and denying what you've been doing this whole time, they're going to go up to you and they're going to be like, how did you do it? How were you able to accomplish this? What did you do that got you here? And things along those lines. So the first 2 steps are always going to suck. But it's the final step at the end of that 1 year, at 0.003 efforts more, that's eventually going to make you at where you are. And I want to close off with this, is that, believe it or not, there's a bunch of you here that have actually seen that. Because I've been out of the BBA scene for a while. You know, because I decided to focus on other things in my life. And that's okay, because, you know, I want to prioritize other things. But there's so much of you. I remember like taking TN as a mentee of mine a long time ago. He sucked. Right? Right? He sucked. But it's been about a year, 2 years now, and now he's part of Schools for Fools. You know, he has his own fan page. Right? Do you want to be in your fan page? Yeah. You know, and things along those lines. I remember Andy, when I first met him, he had this ridiculous haircut.
You cut it for me!
I'm just kidding. But yeah, you know, like Bradley mentioned earlier, Andy actually does a lot that you guys don't know about. He's successful in other aspects of his life besides breaking. You know, he has a job and he has like all these other things that he's doing. So there is that. Leslie, where the fuck are you? Okay. Leslie, I remember Leslie when he was a first year, and when I was talking to him, we ended up, me, Johnny, Leslie, and some other people ended up at DJ, BBC, I think, Korean barbecue or something, I don't even know.
ECD.
ECD, that's it.
That's
ECD, that's it.
tofu.
Okay,
That's tofu.
anyway, So I remember talking to Leslie a long time ago, and I was sitting next to Leslie, and I was telling him like, yo man, why didn't you cipher? And he was all like, well, I was too shy. And I was like, okay. And I was like, well, are you ever gonna like break or like compete or fall quarter or something? He's like, no, I don't think so. Why not? He's like, I'm not ready. And the question then became, well, when do you think you're gonna be ready? And then he never answered. He never answered because the idea is we all think we're not ready. We all think that we're like where we are right now, we're not ready. I can't do it. Everyone is telling me I can't do it. And I just can't do it. But eventually what ended up happening is Leslie is now the vice president of this club. Right? And that's crazy because then he was in Schools for Fools too. And I was kicking all kinds of ass. So everyone here has been able to show something. And if you're ever questioning yourself, if you ever have a sense of self-doubt in yourself, like keep in mind, you may be thinking, I'm not smart enough, I can't handle this problem, or I can't pass this course. You are in UCI for a reason. They selected you out of 40,000 different applicants. They selected 8,000 people. So that means you're smart enough in some way. You're capable. You just have to work hard. Let's say, oh, I can't do it, I can't do that move because that move is hard and it requires a lot of physical aspects. Then train your body. You do that thing that you .003, you train it, you do another rep of this or whatever. I don't know how to do that. But whatever that, like you do that move, you do that extra 6 steps, that extra rep of 6 steps. Eventually you will keep going. I know a guy who was really, he's kind of diabetic, he was a little bit obese, and what he ended up doing is he used that concept of .003. And what he did is he did 1 sit-up a day. And the next day he added another rep to that. So one day he did 1, the next day he did 2, the next day he did 3, and so forth and so forth and so forth. So at the end of the year, in one day he did 365 sit-ups. This guy eventually went from being diabetic to being a fitness model. Okay? So that's what I'm trying to close with, okay? It's like everything that you have, whatever it is that you aspire to do, at the end of the day, make sure that you fuel yourself with it. It's be genuine in what you do. And if people like try to pull you down, it's okay because it doesn't matter what they think. It doesn't matter what anybody else's style is. It doesn't matter what this person may be working at. It doesn't matter what anyone is doing. You have your own goals. And I would like to close with this. Always remain humble in what it is that you do. Because at the end of the day, nobody gives a shit about how much money you make, how good of a b-boy you are, how good looking you are, or anything of that sort. No one cares. The only people who care are the people that you've touched and the people you've inspired. So those are the people that are only going to care. And eventually at, like 50, 60, 70 years from now, it's not going to matter. If you're as smart as you are right now, you may have Alzheimer's and you may forget everything that you've been working hard. Right? Being physical, all of a sudden, like, you're being like the best b-boy and all of a sudden you lose a limb. Right? So then it doesn't matter. So that, like, when that comes down, what really matters is the people that you've touched, the people you've inspired, the people that you've loved, that they've loved you, that they've given as much as they can to you. So it doesn't matter how successful you are. The only thing that matters is the people you love and the ones that love you back. That's it.